Hey guys, thank you everyone for coming. This is another JBUG meeting. This time it's about JBPM. Let me introduce myself. My name is Mauricio Salatino. I'm also known as Salaboy in the JBPM community. And I'm part of this community for like almost 5 years right now. I've also written two books now about JBPM. This is Esteban Aliverti. He is the co-author of the new book that we are publishing right now. And he will be starting the presentation, and I will continue with the second part of the book. Most of this talk is about the book that we are publishing right now, and at the end of the presentation we will be showing a quick demo of the things that we are doing right now, and the community around JBPM is doing. And hopefully we will get Mark Proctor, the Drools project leader, coming here, so he can also give a quick overview about what is happening with the Drools project as well. So, Sam?
Okay. So let's start with the JBPM. How many of you know about JBPM5? JBPM 4 or 3? Okay, great. Awesome, yes. Okay, so let's start with the presentation. So this is the agenda. We're going to have an overview of about JBPM. We're going to cover all the different chapters that we have in the book. From chapters 1 to 7, this is an overview, don't worry. From 1 to 7, we are going to take a look at all the things that any BPMS, business process modeling system, should have, and what JBPM5 has there. And then we're going to move to the most interesting part, which is what we call the evolution of BPMS. And that is when business processes meet rules. So we're going to see what we can do with rules, with complex event processing, and having a different execution context. We're going to see some demos about that as well. That is the last part, which is a feature of JBPM and Rule 6. And in that part, we're going to see a presentation using the JBPM console NG. We're going to talk about what that NG is, what is the JBPM console, and we're going to cover most of it, the most technical part. Here, this is, from here to here is about the book. From here and after is about what is going to be JBPM6. Okay.
Yeah, one thing, if you have questions, please feel free to ask them, and let us know if you have doubts about the chapters or about the topics that we are covering. The idea is that this is like an interactive meeting where we all talk to each other. If you have different experiences, please let us know.
So this is the book, JBPM5 Developer Guide. It's the second book from Mauricio. Mauricio also wrote, as he said, the JBPM3 Developer Guide. And there is a funny story about this book, and is that we had some discussions with the publisher, because for the publisher, this book was just an update from the previous book, the JBPM3 Developer Guide. But the thing is that JBPM5 has a complete different source code. It is not a fork, or it is not based on JBPM3 or 4. It's a complete new project that comes from a different branch of the JBoss products, such as Drools. So Mauricio started 2 years ago or so.
Almost 2 years, yeah.
Started writing this book, and then he asked me for help. I just wrote just one chapter and some details. So it took a lot of time to write this book, because again, he had to start from scratch, basically. Okay, let's continue. So what is JBPM? And there is a good question, because JBPM is a flexible business process engine. And what do I mean by flexible? Flexible is that it is not a monolithic application that you deploy in your application server, then you put all your processes there and you launch the process and start interacting with it. You can use it that way if you want, using this JBPM console that we are going to talk later. But you can also see JBPM5 as a framework that you can embed in any application you have. So it is not a web application, it is not a server-side application, it is whatever you want to. Actually, there are implementations using JBPM5 in Android phones. So it is a really lightweight framework. it allows you to implement the business process management methodology. Okay, we're going to see what the BPM is, what is this methodology about, and how JBPM can help us in implementing this technology. We're going to see that, JBPM5 also has some tooling around. It is not just the framework, it's not just the process engine, but it has some tooling. For example, if you want to define your processes, you have an editor for do that. If you want to run the processes without your own application, you want to install this web application that comes with JBPM, you can also do that. If you want to have your repository where all your process definitions are, and you want to keep a history about that, JBPM5 also has that. But again, it is really, really flexible. You can choose what you want to use or what is useful to you and use it. We're going to see all the different parts that JBPM has, and you will see that it's really, really, really flexible. And another of the characteristics of JBPM is a community. In JBPM5, you have an excellent community. You have a really active forum where you can post questions. There are quick answers. You have mailing lists. You have the IRC chat where you can find us, or you can even find the Chris, which is the project leader. So it has an excellent. According to me, it's an excellent community. Okay, I'm not part of JBUG or Red Hat. So let's start with the review of the book. Okay. So chapter 1 is about the theoretical background that you need to have if you want to start using JBPM. There is not a lot of theoretical things that you have to understand, but it is important that for you to know some concepts and how concepts are related in this BPM methodology. We saw that I don't know if most of, but a lot of questions that appear in the mailing list or in the forums are not technical questions, but questions about how to implement something or problems that people are having because they don't understand the idea behind JBPM5. They are not technical questions, but more conceptual questions. So we decided to write this chapter. We had some problems with the publisher as well, because the publisher wanted to remove this chapter because the book was too big. But according to us, this is one of the most important chapters of the JBPM book, even if it is not about JBPM. It is about business process management. So, in this chapter we cover things like what is a business process and what is BPM. Okay. So, business process. I imagine that if you know what JBPM is, you know what a business process is, right? How many of you are right now writing or designing processes or using business processes in your applications? That's cool. So the business process is basically a business process describes something that the company is doing, and it's like the interaction between different tasks that can be performed by users, human beings or systems. And it's a way that we have to formalize the knowledge or part of the knowledge that we have in our business, in our company. Sorry. So let's see some how a business process looks like. So this example is about a release process of a software or something like that, for example, where we have different tasks that must be executed. We have tasks that involve humans or people, and tasks that are automatic or that involve interaction between the process engine and external systems. In this case, we have to, for example, we have a business user selecting some files to be staged. The files are automatically moved to the staging area. We have a different person reviewing and confirming this. The files are then moved to the testing environment. Some tests are triggered. If everything is okay, the files are moved to the production environment. We have some person that is in charge of publishing these artifacts, and then we have a task for notify, for example, sending an email or something like that. If we have some problems with the tests, the files are moved back to the staging area, and someone is being notified about this failing, and this person needs to take some action in order to react upon this failure. Okay. Now, there is just one process that we have that we could have in our company. What happens when we have a lot of processes? Okay, because typically a company is not doing just that. That is just one little part of what a company does every day. When we start having a lot of processes, we need a way to manage those processes, to manage the life cycle of the processes. And here is where the business process management comes along. The business process management is a methodology that is not about technology. Okay, you can implement, if you want, I don't recommend it, but you can implement BPM without a computer. Okay, business process management is about improving the way your company works. And this methodology defines all these stages. We start here in this cover, and it's like an iterative methodology. So we start discovering our processes. What is the company doing? How it is doing it? Then we need to formalize these processes, that is transform the processes into some artifact that is formal, that we can exchange it with different people that they have no ambiguity. Once we have our processes formalized, we need to implement those processes. That is like putting the flesh into the skeleton. So if the process needs to communicate with an external system, we need to do all the connectors. If we have users interacting with the process, we need to define and to implement the UIs of the application. Once we have everything in place, we can run our processes. And once the processes are running, we can start monitoring the processes. We can check different things like how
the company is working.
How many processes are we executing right now? What is the average time of execution of a process, or things like that? And based on this analysis, we can improve our processes, and then start all over again. We can discover the improvements to do. We need to reformalize the processes, implement the features, and execute them again. Okay. So this is BPM, and jBPM helps us to implement part of these stages. Okay. That's it. So in chapter 2, what we'll cover is what it is called BPMS. So BPM is that methodology. BPMS is a system that allows us to follow that methodology. Okay. So it's a business process management system. And this system simply allows us to execute and automate our business processes. And let's go ahead and see the advantages that we have. Once we have our processes formalized, we know what our processes are, we can start taking performance metrics, for example. We can recognize and deal with business exceptions. So if we can find and identify exception or exceptional path in our processes, once we have formalized it, once we have this process formalized, we can recognize these exceptions, and if this exception are recurrent, we can modify our processes in order to adapt to these exceptions, because maybe it is not an exception, it's something that we haven't think about it. And that is, what we gain with this is agility. We can react upon changes without having to, for example, wait for a release cycle of our application. One of the ideas behind this is that we can have different release schedules for your application and for your processes. So you can modify your processes without having to modify the whole application or do a complete redeploy of your application. Actually, there are companies implementing BPM, that they define on the fly, they define the processes on the fly and execute them without having to wait for any release cycle from the application. In the field of decision making, once we have again our process formalized, we know the tasks, we know the system involved, the person involved in our processes. We have a lot more of information when we have to take a decision, to make a decision about the process. Do we need to have more resources, more persons for this task? What is the most expensive task in the whole process? What we can do to fix it? So we can get an instant snapshot about how the company is performing. How many tasks are we executing right now? How many people is working in a specific task right now? And again, we can quickly adapt our business processes to new needs. Okay, so if we have for example, I know now Christmas is coming, we need to have a new marketing offer or something. We need a special offer for Christmas. We don't have to modify the whole application or redeploy the whole application. We just need to adapt our business processes maybe. So this is the structure of the BPMS, and these are the different components that you can find in a business process system. In the center is, of course, the process engine runtime. So this is what is going to execute our processes. It's going to automate our processes. On top of this, we have the different languages. We're going to talk about this BPM2 language, but you could have different languages. For example, rule flow was the old language that Drools flow, the predecessor of JBPM5 was using. And then you have a semantic module that is going to translate from these languages into something that the business process engine could execute. From the programming side, you could find a set of APIs to interact with the engine. So you can start a process, you can trigger an event on a process, notify the process about something using these APIs. You can even create your own tools or dashboards. You have the audit and history logs. This is very important when we have our processes running. We usually have a lot of information coming out of these processes that we want to use for decision making, for example, or for dashboards or things like that. So we have a module about this audit and history log using an independent storage, and we can have our dashboards or reporting tools accessing that information. When we have long-running processes, what we call long-running processes that could take 1 hour, 1 day, 1 week, 1 year, we need a way to store that process into a database in case of, for example, server crash, or if we are waiting for a user to complete the task, we don't want to have the process in memory doing nothing. So we have a persistence and transaction module that is going to persist the information of that process. And then we have an independent human task component that we can use to, when our processes are using human tasks, we already have a human task component that has its own set of APIs that we can use to create our UI, the UI for our processes. And this component uses an identity module to know about the users and the groups in our company. So this is what a BPMS usually has. This is what JBPM5 has. And one of the advantages of JBPM5 is that all these modules are decoupled, so you can use what you need to. If you're planning to create or to use processes that don't involve persons or human beings, you don't need to have the human task component. You don't use it. If you have your business process engine and you want to programmatically create your processes, you don't want to use any language or any formal language to define your process. You want to do it by code. You don't need the semantic module. You don't use it. you have short running processes that take 1 second, 2 seconds to be executed, and you don't care about the persistence of those processes. You don't have to use the persistence and transaction model if you don't want to. Okay, so in jBPM5, you use what you would need to use. So that is why I told you that this is a really flexible framework where this is not a monolithic application that you install and use. So chapter 3 is about the BPM 2.0, and BPM is the language that we use to define our processes. This is a standard language, and since jBPM 5.0, this is the de facto language of jBPM, and actually it's the de facto language for all the business processes engine today. I think I don't know. I mean, most of the typical business process engines are using BPM2 already. And the idea behind BPM2 is it defines not just the structure of the language, so not just it is an XML language, so it defines not just the syntax of the language, it also defines the graphical representation of the nodes. So if I have my BPM2 editor, and you have your BPM2 editor, and I share a process with you, you will immediately understand it, okay? That is good, but another big advantage is that the version 2 of this specification, it also defines the execution semantic of the process. So it is not just the syntax, it is not just what nodes do I have, what tasks do I have, and what are the properties of these tasks, but what is the expected behavior of each of the tasks or of the nodes that I have. So this makes the interoperability between engines easier. Let's go. So go back, sorry. So in chapter 3 we cover this language, and we cover the most typical tasks and nodes that we use when we are dealing with processes. Okay. Chapter 4, which is knowing your toolbox, is about all the tooling around jBPM. From the infrastructure point of view, we have Governor. How many of you know what Governor is? Okay, so Governor is basically, it is a web application, and you can use Governor as a central repository of processes, or actually of assets. Being process is one of the assets. You can also store rules there. So you have all your processes in one place. Governor is going to automatically version all your assets. It is like a version control system for your assets. And then you can access those assets using different interfaces. You can access those assets using an UI, a web UI, HTTP, SOAP, REST. But again, if you don't want to store your assets, your processes in Governor because you already have your own repository, you don't need to use it. Okay? Now, when we have to design our processes, and here's where jBPM5 gets a little bit messy, because we have 3 different editors that we could use. We have the old Eclipse plugin. This plugin comes from the old version of jBPM5, which is Drools Flow, and it is currently deprecated. You can use it if you want to create very simple processes, but it is deprecated. Nobody is adding new features to this editor. Then we have the official web process editor that comes. This comes with Governor, so it's bundled inside Governor. And here is where most of the efforts are being put, at least from the jBPM5 team, because then we have this Eclipse BPM 2.0 editor, which is a plugin for Eclipse. But this is not being developed by the jBPM5 team. It's a different team inside JBUG. I'm not sure if supported or not from Red Hat or JBUG. So today, if you want to use jBPM5 today, I would recommend you to use the web process editor. But again, if you have your own editor, if you're using a third-party editor, you can still use it because the language that we use, or that jBPM5 uses, is standard. From the runtime point of view, we have two different things. We have the jBPM5 GWT process server. That GWT has nothing to do with it. I mean, it is not actually implementing GWT disk, but from here, this is a process engine that you can deploy as a web application, and you can access this engine through REST. So you can start the process, you can signal an event into a process, you can get all the tasks for a process, you can complete a task, a human task inside a process using this REST API. And then you have the jBPM5 GWT console, and this is yes, a web application built using GWT that uses all the services of this other application of the process server in order to give you an UI where you can run your processes. Okay. But again, if you want to have your own application, you don't want to use this predefined application to run processes, you can build your own application using the jBPM5 APIs. So again, all of this is not mandatory. Okay? You use what you want or what you need. Chapter 5 is specifically focused on the web process designer. So what we did in this chapter was to get one of the examples that we had, one of the process examples that we had before. And in this chapter you will find a step-by-step tutorial on how to build a process from scratch using the web process designer. Because it could be kind of tricky, most of all with the attributes, the different attributes that you have for the different nodes that you could use in your process. So this chapter goes with this tutorial, and I will show some other things like the integration with Gartner, the process definition validation, so you can validate the process definitions that you are writing to see if you have any problem. We are going to talk about domain-specific tasks in the next slide, but you have integration with domain-specific tasks and with something called the service repository. Let's see what that is. So chapter 6 is about domain-specific processes. BPM2 is a great standard, a great language, but of course it is too generic. That is the word. It is too generic. Okay. So most of the times, what we need for our business are specific things. For example, if we have a task that is move a file from from the staging area to the testing environment, that is a really specific task that we use in our processes. Okay? So that is not covered or entirely covered by the specification, by BPM specification. So jBPM5 defines a way to extend that and use our own nodes, our own tasks in our processes. So we can define our tasks, we can define the input of our tasks, we can define the output of our tasks, and then we can use those definitions as custom nodes or custom tasks in the editor. So in the palette of the editor, we don't have an example in the demo, but in the palette of the editor, we will have these specific tasks that only make sense to us. They are like building blocks that we can drag and drop and use it and reuse it in our processes. Okay. So using these domain-specific tasks, we create a clear separation between definition and implementation because we use them when we are defining when we are defining our processes. We use these tasks. And then in runtime, we can plug the implementation that we want to use. So if we are, for example, testing our process in a testing environment, we may want to use a different implementation for a task. For example, if we have a task that is send an email, and we have an integration, or we want to run tests using this process, we don't want that. If they're running tests, we don't want to receive emails, right? Or to email the whole company about something that we are just testing. So we can have, in the definition of the process, we can have that send email task. But then in runtime, we can plug the implementation that we want to use for the runtime. Okay? We will see that in the demo. Yeah, I leave it here. Mauricio is going to continue with the chapter 7, which is the last of the normal chapters of the book. And then he is going to explain you the most advanced topics and the more interesting topics. Okay?
Domain-specific processes and domain-specific constructs are very useful for defining system-to-system integrations. So what Esteban has explained before is about how to define the system-to-system integrations with using domain-specific constructs. But one of the most important things inside BPM and business processes is human interactions. How we interact, how we allow our users inside our company to interact with the systems, and how we enable them to perform their daily tasks interacting with the BPM tool. When we formalize our processes, the main idea is that we will be guiding the company through their daily tasks. And when we are doing that, we are basically guiding the users to perform their tasks, to their everyday tasks. So we will be, with the human interactions or with the human task service that JBPM provides, is a component that allows us to define these interactions. This service will allow us to define what a human interaction is, how it will be handled by the engine, and how we will be communicating back with the process engine, notifying that a task was performed by a user or a group of users. Of course, this gives us a lot of advantages and allows us to start measuring how the company, the human beings inside the company are performing their tasks. We will be able to get metrics about that, and we will be able to optimize how the company is doing the job. Some of the concepts introduced by this module, because this is a big service, there are a lot of conceptual things that we need to understand in order to use it. It's not that difficult, but there are some things that we need to understand. If we have human interaction inside of our processes, we will need to use the human task service. If we have system interactions, we don't need the human task service. I've seen a lot of implementations where you want to use domain-specific constructs that interact with persons. That's a mess. And I've also seen some people trying to create automatic tasks with the human task service to emulate persons that are systems, something like that. That's crazy. So if you have human interactions, you should use the human task service. This human task service provides like two very big concepts that are the concept of task list. How many of you are using task list in your company? Okay, perfect. So basically, a task list is a place where the user or each user inside the company just looks into the screen and they can see what are their pending tasks, what they need to do. Usually, inside this chapter, I explain these topics like if we have two separate task lists, one for ourselves. These are my personal task list, and these are my group task list that belongs to my roles. Basically, we can describe what a person can do based on a role, and then we can create tasks for that specific role. Okay? What we provide in jBPM5 is this module that it's completely abstracted from the process engine. That means that if you have applications that also create interactions with persons, we can start using these concepts, and we don't need to even have processes. I mean, we can just create tasks and allow them to interact with the tasks, and then do something with that. I mean, we can just start measuring how they do their work using this kind of concepts. So the task list will present all the tasks, basically a summary about what needs to be done. And when the user wants to work on that task, they will just jump to what we call task form, and this is just the form. Okay? So the only thing that you need to know about task forms are that they must be domain specific. Okay? If we have different tasks, we need to provide different mechanisms to allow the users to do their work without adding more complexity on top of that. So in this case, we have a simple example about reviewing or translating a document. In this case, we have two tabs. One that shows us the document that we need to translate. Probably we can translate the document using like a plugin or something. And then we have a second tab that allows us to introduce meta information about that task. So we can rate how the translation has been done. We can add some comments. We can do different things. When we complete one of these tasks, the idea is that the task will be removed from the task list, and if something needs to be done by that specific person, a new task will be presented inside that task list. Just to go back to the task list, group tasks. when we have group tasks, what we can do is we can claim the task. So this task is for all our groups, all the persons that has a different role, have the same role. And when one person is available, they can claim the task. They will move the task to the personal task list in order to start working. If they don't want to work on that task anymore, they can just release the task, and the task will be placed inside the group task list event. So the group task again, and someone else can take it. The human task service, it's not here in the slide, but this chapter also introduced another specification that it's called Web Service Human Task Specification. It was defined by a group called Oasis that basically creates different standards. And what this specification defines is this. Is the task lifecycle, basically all the stages that a task can be in at a certain point, and also the APIs to interact with these services. So we are following this standard, and if you want to use this component, you just can read the specification and take a look at the APIs, and we are trying to support that in every way. There is another example of task form. We will see this in the demo. We are not showing very customized forms, but you will get the idea. Chapter 8, and this is where Drools start to appear. It's about persistence and transactions. And as we saw before in this big component diagram, there are a lot of components interacting. And of course, if we start, as Esteban mentioned already, if we start dealing with long-running processes, we need to know how we'll be able to persist those processes. And if we are interacting with different applications, trying to bring some system-to-system interactions, we will need to understand how we will define the transaction boundaries between different systems. Because Drools and jBPM were created together to be able to run in the same context, they were designed from the ground up. They share a lot of these components. So we want to show here how basically we have all the engines, process, rules, and complex event processing together. They will run together, and they will share all the other components. So how many of you know Drools, the rule engine? Okay, how many of you are using it? Okay, cool. So there's no much introduction to be done there. All the components will be shared. We will be able to create human tasks from the rule engine. We will be able to create tasks based on events that are coming. And of course, we will be able to create tasks based on processors. But when we start dealing with persistence and transactions, when we want to start logging about what is happening inside the engines, we will be using the same ideas, right? The same for the runtime engines. When we want to include a business process, we will just use the same parsers that are being used for rules and for parsing the models and for parsing different knowledge assets. As Esteban mentioned, also we have Governor where we can store all these assets and where we can compile all these assets, and then we can build an application that consumes those compiled assets as the package. So one of the important things here is that we are sharing those persistence and transaction mechanisms, and the book in this section goes a little bit deeper on what we need to understand in order to use these components. Some of the time we notice that in the forums and the people ask different questions about how to use this, and most of the questions are related to, once again, to understanding the behavior that we want to implement. Okay, so if we have processes, the processes will handle the persistent mechanism in a way that most of the process engines do. The rule engine will handle the persistent mechanisms in a different way because it's a rule engine, it's not a process engine. So these modules are like hybrid, and they will work not in the way that you will think in the first step. So it's like you really need to understand what is happening there. So just for you to know, the persistent mechanisms are based on JPI and JPA. It's a standard, but it's good because it's completely decoupled, it's abstracted, so you can provide your own persistent mechanism. And we need to understand a little bit when the process will be persisted, when a rule will trigger the persistent mechanism, and when the data will be stored in the database, and how we will be able to restore that. So there are a lot of examples of that. We will show that in the book. And transactions as well is based on JTA, on a standard, and of course you can provide your own like plugins or hooks in order to define the transaction boundaries. The book in this part, in these sections, start talking about system integration, what happens when we need to make our process to interact with different transactional resources, what are the conceptual ways of defining a transaction boundary, and what's the main idea, or what's the mindset that you need to have in order to tackle down problems around these topics. And then chapter 9, it's a little bit late in the book, but we spent a lot of time writing these chapters because we really wanted to share this idea of having the rule engine inside the process engine, or vice versa, basically both at the same level, and what kind of things can be done with that. Because what we notice is that most of the people that understand how a process engine works, the next step is the rule engine. When you understand the process engine, then you start thinking about the rule engine. There is another field that started from the rule engine, and then they say, okay, we have a process engine, so let's start using it. So it's important for us and for everyone to start understanding what kind of things can be done with that, and how this is evolving, how we are adding new levels. We are adding more complexity to the engine itself, but at the same time, we are enabling the user to do a lot of different things. A lot of different things. And that's the problem, because now you have a lot of different options, and you need to know how to tackle down different problems. Yeah? There is no single solution for every scenario. So this chapter is about rules. A quick introduction about rules is done inside that chapter, and some examples about how to start using rules and what kind of things you can do with rules around processes start to appear here. There's also a comparison between jBPM3 and 4 and the other BPMS, open source BPMS and products that are around there, and what kind of things you can do with this that you cannot do with the other products, so it's kind of cool. And chapter 10 is about Drools Fusion. How many of you know Drools Fusion or have used that? Not too many, and that's good because this adds another thing to the mix. Okay, so Drools Fusion is a layer on top of the rule engine that allows us to understand about time. So the rule engine by default doesn't understand about time. You can insert facts, and based on different facts we can get different conclusions. But Drools Fusion allows us to start handling those facts as events that are coming to our application, and we can start recognizing temporal situations. For example, if we receive, like, I don't know, 10 notifications in the last hour, we can recognize something and we can start the process. If we recognize that, I don't know, 10 employees didn't come today, we can start different process than the ones that we start in a normal day. So these are a lot of complexity, but a lot of new things as well. You can start creating different patterns based on events, and this is something that we would like to show you today in the demo. And chapter 11 is exactly about that. We now have a lot of options, we have a lot of features that we can mix, but we really need to know how to mix these features and what kind of things we can do, and what's the expected behavior of mixing all these features. We know, I mean, from the engine perspective, from the process and from the rules engine perspective, this is really good because we are providing a very flexible tool that can do a lot of things. But I understand, because I did consulting for 3 years, that for a user that wants to start doing something, sometimes it's difficult to make the right decisions. Right? So this chapter is about that. It's about how we will handle this very complex tool, how we will define which features we can start using in our first iterations, and how we can define something that can scale up. So we will build something very simple, then we put another layer, we define what kind of things we will put inside the session, inside of the Drools or a JBPM session, and what kind of things we can start doing inside that. And where are the limitations? So when we have, I don't know, too many processes or too many rules inside the session, we need to break that apart, we need to start making different interactions. And there are a lot of patterns, a lot of different patterns that you can build. So what we did here is trying to recommend you how to start, and what are the main concepts that you need to have in mind in order to build like a scalable solution. Okay, so that's the book. The book is about the JBPM 5.4, the final, yeah.
Do you at some point in your book describe the issue view of, like, let's say you have a process, and it's a long-running process over a week, and you want to make a change to that process, or you have to change some work item handlers, or some work item handlers, and all that. How do you manage to deploy a new version of the process and keeping instances of the previous version of the same process running in parallel at the same time? Because I think that's one of the issues we have at the moment, and it's quite difficult
to think about that. Yeah, well, this is not exactly about migration. I think that the example that we discussed here is...
It's more like a process migration. As you said, the important bit about JBPM, my understanding is that moving from one version of your BPM to another one should be independent of your application deployment.
Of course.
And therefore, it's actually when you have long-running BPMs, it's actually...
No, of course. And that's like a common scenario. I mean, if you're in a company, you want to do that, right? And once again, it's about this. It's about how you architect your application, right? How many sessions do you have? How many things do you have? And there are some of the things that are provided by the framework and some of the things that you need to provide as an application because you define those, right? And some of the mechanisms that you need to define and are explained here, it's about how you create sessions. So if you want to deploy a new version, you just can create a new session and start a new session with the new version of the process and keep the old sessions running with the old version of the process. So we can discuss about that particular scenario. In the book is trying to describe different patterns about how to do different of those things. Not just that. I mean, there are different parts that can be applied to that situation as well. So it really depends on what do you want to do and how do you want to do it. Because you are just using process, but if you are using rules, that's different. If you're using events, that's also different. I mean, what about mixing, what about changing or versioning all the things together? So we are working on that, and there are some big, there are like a big effort being done in the 6 series, because the book, as I was saying, the book is based on JBPM 5.4 that was released 1 month ago. But of course we cannot stop, so as soon as we make the community release, we just jump to Drools 6 and start working on that. And some of the things that are being done in Drools 6 is basically all the integration with CDI. I don't know how many of you know about CDI. Okay, well, okay, cool. It's just dependency injection and some other things, but the standard. It's like Spring, but standard Spring with some other things. We are migrating most of the things, not migrating, but adapting to work all the things in here, and that makes a lot of easier, simpler how you deploy things, how you recognize things from the class path, how you recognize different versions. So you will see a lot of upgrades there. JBPM6 and Drools 6 uses the same concepts at 5, the same concepts, the concepts that are described inside the book. So the book will really help you to move forward to 6. It's not a big deal because the changes are not conceptual. We are using the same concepts. There will be some some classes names that will be changed. All the tooling is being updated. That's what I would like to show you right now. We are creating, we are moving all our tooling to something that is called Unifier. That it's a framework to create like workbench. It's like kind of Eclipse in the web environment where you can define different panels. For example, to handle your task list, you will have the task list panel, then you have your process designer, you will have your rules offering the tools there. And that's why we have like the new JBPM console and the new GAP being created right now and being refactored. So what we have right now here, it's a demo. Esteban will show a little bit about the process designer, what things were released like a month ago in 5.4. And then I will show a quick demo about the JBPM console NG and what kind of things we are doing there.
And this is actually the interface of the editor is kind of easy to understand. There's nothing complex there. I mean, we are used to use IDEs much more complex than this. But the problem is know how to use it, but what properties we should use for each of the different tasks that we have. So in the process editor, you have a palette with all the different elements that we can use in our processes.
So how many of you are using this tool? Okay.
Okay.
More or less.
here once what we can do is just drag and drop tasks, of course, and then we have the properties of the tasks, and as you can see there are a lot of properties. So what the chapter 5 of the books is trying to do is trying to define or to describe the different options that we have and the different attributes that we have and how to create a process from the scratch using this tool. So for example, what is interesting for us now is that, for example, each task has, I don't know, inputs, group ID, release name. Each task has outputs, files output. And then we have the assignments between the inputs and the outputs. Okay, so nothing strange. The book is the chapter. Actually, chapter 5 is it's all about this tool. One thing that I couldn't cover in chapter 5, unfortunately, and it is kind of a cool thing, but it is really new. So I didn't have time to include it in the book, because when I started writing this chapter, this feature was not even there yet. Is the simulation. So now you can simulate your processes. So you can not just define them, you can simulate them. So each of the tasks, or each of the nodes, they have a special section of attributes that are the simulation attributes. And here you can find things like cost per time unit, for example 10, the maximum processing time. So this is the maximum time that this task usually takes, or the minimum time, the staff that I have available for this task. So if I only have one person that could perform this task, or if I have, in this case, I have 4, I can change this. So I have 5 now. Then what is the time unit? Is hours, seconds, minutes, hours, day. So in this case, the currency, okay, currency is dollars, and the working hours of our staff, okay, 8 hours a day. So I can configure all these attributes for all my nodes in my process. Let me just delete this. What? I don't know.
I don't know. Let's see. Yep.
Too difficult. I can configure all these properties for all my nodes, and then I can run the simulation. So I can go here, run simulation, and I can set here the number of instances that I want to run. I don't know, 20 instances, and the interval between each execution. So for example, 2 minutes. So after I'm going to start one process, then 2 minutes later I'm going to start a different process instance. 2 minutes later I'm going to start a different process instance. And then I can run the simulation. I'm going to run it because I already ran it. Because this is... Oh, sorry, no. Can I run it?
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Okay, let's try. Run simulation 20 times, 2 minutes. Okay, now it is important to understand that the process was not executed actually. Okay, so if I have a task that said remove a file, move a file from one place to another, send an email, in this case for the simulation, the process is not executed. The only thing that is performed is it's kind of the process is simulated using this specific attribute that we have in each of the tasks, and we can get some information about that. So for example, we can see that here the maximum execution time. Yeah, I'm using values that makes no sense. So it's 6,000 minutes, I think. The minimum execution time, the average execution time, then activity by activity, I can say, yeah, here I have a problem with the names, but again, remember this is the first version of the simulator, so there are a lot of improvements that are not here in version 5.4, for example. But here you have the activities, the different activities. This is review and confirm release, for example. How many instances do we have? 18, 8. Then we have different ways to see the same information, of course. Different kind of graphs. We have pie charts. We have pie charts. We have the information in a tabular way, and we have this information for the whole process, or we have the information for each of the different tasks that we have. So, for example, this human task here, fix issues. What is the maximum execution time? This is the wait time that I have. I mean, I have to wait because I don't have enough resources to work on all the concurrent tasks that I have of this type. So I have this wait time here. So this could serve to, for example, say, okay, I need to put another person here because there are a lot of, I mean, I cannot handle the demand. The resource allocation, again, the maximum resource allocation, 500 employees. Again, I'm using numbers that make some sense. The cost for this task. So I have an associated cost. So what is the maximum cost of this task? Is, for example, in this case, is $600. The minimum $500. And I can see this information for the different tasks that I have. And another cool feature is what I can do is I can like well, the definition here is not enough, but what I can do is I can replay the process to see what happened in time. So, for example, here is when everything started. I can move the time. Yeah, I have a problem here with the definition of the resolution. Yeah, the resolution is of the monitor. So let's do this. Okay, so yeah, I have concurrent tasks. So, but here you can see that at a certain point in time, I have two different tasks being executed. For example, here I have all these different tasks. I can move ahead in time. Yeah, I'm not sure why. Here you should see something. But again, we don't have the server running, so it's okay. Okay, so you have all this. So the designer is not just about designing the processes anymore. You can now simulate your processes there. Unfortunately, again, this is not in the book because that wasn't there when we wrote the book. Okay, but this is in version in final release in version 5.4. You already have this. Okay, so this is the process that we are going to use in our demo. So remember, we have to select first the files that we want to stage. Then the files are going to be automatically moved from the staging area. We need to review and confirm that. Once they are confirmed, this information is confirmed, we're going to move the files to the testing environment. We are going to run some tests against these files. The test that we're going to use is just we're going to check for the length of the content of the file. But again, remember, do you remember I told you that one of the advantages of these domain-specific processes are that we can separate the definition of the process with the implementation of the process. So here, the only thing that we have is these trigger tests. This is the definition of the task. Now the implementation, the real implementation, the logic that we want to execute in this task is not here. It's not in the definition of the process. We are going to plug that logic in runtime, and we can even switch the logic in runtime as well. Okay, so this is just the definition of the process, not the implementation of the execution. Okay? If everything is okay with the test, we are going to move the files to production. someone is going to publish the artifacts and notify some users are going to be notified via email. If we have some problems with the test, the files are going to move back again to the staging area. Someone needs to fix the problems, and then they're going to move. The files are going to be moved again to testing environment, run tests, and so on until we get our bits. BPM2 definition of the process. So as you can see, you can use Notepad if you want to define the process. You can use Notepad. Okay.
Are these custom web definitions that you've got behind this, or are they?
In that one, yeah. I mean, in this case, we don't define like the domain-specific constructs for the plugin, but you can do that.
Yes. For example, if you have, because one of the problems here is that, for example, we have this trigger test, right? In order to do this trigger test, what we have to do is we have to drag and drop this generic task. We need to go to the palette, and we need to define the data inputs. I mean, the input of this task. We need to define the output of this task, and then we need to do the assignment between the process variables and the inputs and the outputs and the process variables.
That's very technical for a business user.
Exactly, and if we want to use this same task, this trigger test, we are going to use this task in a lot of processes or more than one time in our processes. We have to define all these things once and again. So what we can do is we can define this in a centralized place that could be governor this application, web application, or something called the service repository. And then we will have this task. We will have here a special section with our domain-specific node. So we will have here a task called trigger test, for example, and once we drag and drop it, we will already have all the definitions already here, okay? We could use a special color or special icons, whatever. So, yeah, we are not showing this in the demo, but that is the idea behind that.
So
Yes.
these as they are now,
Yes.
you couldn't make them actually run until you plug in a custom definition. Like, they're not going to tie to an execution.
Exactly, yeah. You need to, when you define your runtime, you need to just plug your own implementation and define for different runtimes, different implementations if you want. Yeah.
Okay. So let's see the demo. The demo is going to be using this new JBPM console version that is not for JBPM5, it's for JBPM6. But all the ideas behind that implementation are the same. So it's just for give you an idea of what you can do with the process engine and with JBPM5. Okay.
Yeah. And
I will begin with Mauricio.
And the idea of the demo is not to scare you, but the idea is to show what we are doing right now in the community side, in the community project. One of the things that I truly believe that if we do like a good job and we make it open source and we just announce what we are doing every time, a lot of companies can help us to improve what we are doing, to give us feedback, to improve the ideas, and we can make sure that we are covering what the industry needs. So this is like a very good time to start giving us feedback and let us know what kind of things are you using, like for example process versioning. That's something important that we have inside of our roadmap. It's not here yet, but it will be there soon, of course. One of the things that I would like to show you here is this idea of the new JBPM console. It's being built to run processes, of course. It will allow us to manage all our business processes. We will be able to start the business processes, interact with them, and also it will provide the human task list and the human task forms as well. But the key point here is that we want to provide a unified environment to run rules as well, and also to run processes, right? But in order to enable the users to do that, they need to understand how to model those assets, how to model business processes, and why it's better to model business processes, simple business processes, and then start dealing with exceptional situations with rules, and how to deal with events with rules fusion, what kind of things you can do with that, and how to create new patterns based on the three technologies instead of just building processes and complicated processes to run and just do complicated things instead of simple things that can handle more complicated scenarios. So in the demo we will be running this process, but what I would like to show you here is what kind of things you can do with rules. In this case, because we are running our process with the help of the rule engine, we will define some business rules that will start analyzing the process at all times, And when we find some situations, we will not be notifying the user, or we will be creating warnings to take some actions. Okay? So one of the rules that we have defined in here is that if one process instance goes through this path more than twice, we will be creating a warning. Okay? We will say this process is taking too much time, and it's going through this path too many times for what the company wants. So we will just generate a warning. We will not add that logic inside the process definition. We will just write some rules that will let us know when that situation happens. Okay? So we keep the process simple. We don't add extra logic inside the process, and we handle those situations that are about recognizing a very specific case to rules. We will also be able, in this case, because we are using jBPM, in jBPM what we can do is run multiple process instances inside the same session. We will be able to start monitoring multiple process instances at the same time using rules. So in this case, we have some rules that says that they are not allowed to start two processes that will use the same release path and the same release files, for example. So if we start two processes, one of them, well, the second one will be automatically aborted because we don't allow that. That's a business restriction. And if you start thinking about how you will do that, just using processes, that's basically adding like 3 or 4 more nodes, adding a lot of gateways in the middle to check that there is not another process running. Or you need to do that in your application. In this case, using the same APIs justifying a set of just one rule, just one simple rule that checks that there are not two process instances using the same resources, and that's it. We keep everything simple. And the last thing that we will show here is another simple thing that we can do is create an ad hoc task. Basically, it's a task that is not inside the process definition, but in this case, we want to create like a generic task for profiling performance. We have a system interaction here, and if this system interaction takes more than 30 seconds or whatever we want, we will create a different task for a system administrator to go and to profile what is happening with that service. Okay? But once again, we don't define this task inside the business process. We will define a rule that will create a task if we recognize that situation. Okay? Hey, Mark. Okay, so this is what I will be showing here. The jBPM console, it's being built right now. So we didn't spend too much time on the styling or adding different things. But we are building all this application on top of Uberfire, the framework that I already mentioned. And probably Mark can give us another overview about that project as well. So what we have here is the home screen for the user. In this case, I'm logged in, and I have 2 different roles, writer and release manager, because we are running this release process. In this case, I will be showing what all the tasks are being assigned to the release manager group. It's a group. It's not me, it's a group. So I will need to claim each task that comes to my group. And for that, I will start the process. Let's see if this is running correctly. I don't know. Let's see. Oh, sorry about this. The resolution is not the optimal. But so what we have here is the process definitions that we have in our context. So all these process definitions are being picked up from a GitHub repository. So we are going and picking all the definitions from a GitHub repository, fetching all these definitions, creating sessions with these definitions, and basically picking up everything from this repository that we have here. So what we can do here is start adding new process definitions that will be picked up by the runtime, and they will be automatically added to different sessions. And the other thing that we can do here, let's see what else do we have. We have also our task forms being picked up from the repository. So we define all the human tasks like screens, and that will be picked up from this repository. There are templates. We are also working on something called the form builder that will allow us to, will allow the business user to define their forms and create these templates. That's not there yet, but it will be at some point. Okay, so this is the release process, and I will start a new instance of this process. In order to start a new instance, we will need to create the release name. So initial.
So remember, this is a generic application. So here you can run, or you could run all the processes you want. And in this case, what we have here is one of the first form for the process. So when we start the process, we have this form for gather some initial information that we need, and we could have different forms for the different processes that we can deploy there. So we can deploy our new processes, and we can deploy new templates for the forms of those processes.
Exactly. So what I'm doing here is just starting a new instance. As soon as I start the new instance, the instance will be created, and we will be able to see some details about this instance, like for example the current status, the current active task, in this case select files to stage. This is the first thing that we have here, right? This task is, as soon as this task is created, it's created inside the human task service. We can go to the human task service and ask for all the tasks assigned to me or to my group. In this case are assigned to my group, so we can go to the inbox perspective. And we can see that the new task, I have a new task here, a new pending task, but because it's a group task, I need to claim this task with this button. And as soon as I claim the task, I will be able to start working on it. Okay? So in order to work on it, I can just start the task here and complete it here, but if the task requires information, I have a specific form. I will start working on this task. And remember, because we are using the task service, we are using the process engine, we are recording all these steps. So for every step that the user do, start the task, complete the task, start the process, everything is being logged. So you as like system administrator or as a manager, you can go and see that log and see what is happening. What I will do here is basically specify a set of files that will be processed by this process in order to make a release. So we will be moving these files from one directory to a different one inside the repository. Inside the GitHub repository that we are using, we have examples, and we have a specific div directory where we have like different stages. We have the test stage, the stage, and the production. And we will be picking some files from here. Okay, we have 3 files: the goodbye, the text, the hello, and the too long. I will be including all of them in this release. So, for example, if I include hello.
So ideally, here in this form, you will have a file chooser or something like that,
yeah.
Something more interactive. Right? This is just for the demo.
Yep. Yeah. Just for you to know, we start working on this demo like next Friday. So we just define the process, we define the forms, and everything is running. Of course, the forms require more adaptations and more styling and all that kind of things. Okay, so I will select the files that I want to stage. And as soon as I stage the files, a new task has been created. After moving the files, let's take a look. We select the files that we want to stage for this release. We will move the files to the staging area. We will review and confirm that selection. This could be a different person, remember? In this case, it will be me again, but it will be another person inside the release manager group. And this is just a confirmation task about saying, okay, these are the right files that I want to deploy, to release.
And you can change the files if you want.
Yeah, we can change the files here and take a different action. So, because we have this process, and in this case we have move file to testing environment, that this is an automatic task that we will perform. And then we have the trigger tests. In this case, the trigger test is an automatic task, and we have one of the files that is being recognized and it's being processed, and that file takes a lot of time to be analyzed and to be tested. So for that reason, a rule will be activated and a new task will be created here. So after the tests were executed, we can see here inside this task that there is a report about the tests that were executed. We can see that the goodbye text file was processed okay, everything was great with that. Then the hello text file contains an error, and the too long txt file also takes too much time to be processed, and that's the reason why we have a different task for the administrator to perform a profile about this task. So we can just start this task and complete it.
And remember, that task is not part of the definition of the process. We are creating that task because we have a rule analyzing the real-time situation of the process and realizing that there is a node that is taking too much time, so we can create these ad hoc tasks on the fly.
Exactly. So that task was created. It's related with the process, but it's not inside the process definition. It's something that will happen sometimes, And it's not related with the process itself at some point because it's related with the system or with an external interaction. That task can be created for multiple processes or for different tasks that are not from these processes, from this specific process as well. So in order to make this, in order to be able to do this release, we need to fix and we need to include only the files that are being processed okay, being tested okay. And for that reason, what we will do here is we will start this task and we will just leave the only file that goes through all the tests, in this case goodbye text. When we complete the task, a new task will be created. In this case is the one that we have here, publish released artifacts, that will enable us to, I don't know, upload the files to a different server or publish the files in a web page or something like that. And then we will be able to notify all the business users about this release using another service. So I will claim this task, I will start working on it, and once again we have the report, everything is okay, and this report will be sent via email to the users that I specify here, for example. So as soon as I complete the task, all the users interested in this release will be notified. And because it's an external service, we should go and take a look at the external service if everything is okay. That's basically my console, and yeah, basically we have the report here that it's been sent. Of course, as Esteban mentioned, as already mentioned, we can just change the implementation about how to notify the users for our runtime and inject an email as an email server, and the email will be sent if we want to do that. Or if we want to use different or multiple notification mechanisms, we just need to implement that specific connector for doing that task. Once again, what you can see here inside the process runtime perspective, you can notice that the process instance was completed, so it's not listed anymore, but we can just enable and see all the completed instances as well. And you can take a look at the full log of activities that were executed for this business process. This information is being kept in, it could be placed in a different data repository, in a different storage, in a different database, in order to not impact the performance of the runtime engine. Something that you can see here that you will not be able to see in in other BPMs is the session notifications, which are basically the rules that are being executed for those processes. So you will see here that some rules were triggered, and those rules create another task, the ones that we saw there, that is not part of the process definition. And then we can see different warnings or different notifications about that a specific task is taking too much time, we need to do something, I don't know, something we are using the wrong parameters for some task, we can just notify the boss that something needs to be done, or that kind of stuff. Or we can just start aborting processes that are not needed anymore. We can just limit the amount of process instances that are being created inside one session at the same time. We can check multiple process instances that are being run and start balancing the resources that we have inside the company to handle those, or start creating notifications or that kind of stuff. So it's important, for me at least, to share with you that there are a lot of things that can be done in order to keep the process definition simple and handle all the exceptional situations, all the things that require some kind of analysis or multiple process analysis using these kind of tools. I will show the rules here. I don't have a rule editor to show these rules, but let me see where it is. So what we have here are the rules, and if you know a little bit about rules, you will see that these are very simple rules that basically are analyzing the process events. So we have something that is called process started event and process completed event, and we start writing rules about that. Okay, when we execute the process, when we start the process, and when we complete the process, some events are being generated, and we can start correlating these events. So what this rule says is that if the process was started and after 2 minutes the process was not completed, we will just generate a notification and warn something, right? The other rule here is doing, we can start analyzing how many nodes are being executed at some point, so how many nodes we execute in the last minute, and based on that we can start defining what kind of policies will we apply on top of that. And a lot of complex patterns can be applied to that, and that's the main purpose of chapter 8, 9, and 11 so 8, 9, 10, and 11 inside the book. So if you're interested in those topics, keep an eye on the blogs and keep an eye on well, the book as well. Because right now that we have published the book, we will be able to start writing more advanced blog posts about these kind of topics that we really love.
Yeah, remember, even if this is JBPM6, all the APIs and all the features that we are using in the console are already present in JBPM5.
Yeah,
we have the previous version actually of this application, which is the JBPM5 GWT console in version 5. So there's nothing. The only thing JBPM6 specific of this is the web framework that we have used to build it, but that's all.
Exactly. Yeah. The idea of this web framework that is called URFire is that allows us to build this application pretty quickly. We can create one of these panels. It's extremely simple. And for example, this framework allows us to create different layouts of this panel. So we have here the process instance list and the process definition list, and this like kind of Eclipse, but for the web browser. So we can just drag and drop the panels around, and we can create our own layouts, and the users can store those layouts and start using them. The idea is that at some point, Mark, please correct me if I'm wrong, but the idea is that we will provide Governor and the JBPM console panels all together, and the user will be able to choose different perspectives, the process perspective, the rules perspective, or a mixed perspective that allows them to do a lot of things. Right? It depends on the user. Guys, if you have questions, I will be around. So
yeah, we will be here. So just grab us. Thank you very much.